And I'm the unofficial maggid of the school. I tell stories. That's what I do. Stories, talk about the Rebbe, talk about the Rebbe, the Pagre. But I really would rather teach Chassidus than tell stories. So I used to teach Tanya, every year the same Tanya. And last year the school gave me an option to teach my Morim twice a week to the same group of girls. Could you imagine? The same teacher twice a week. It's over on the first halacha in seminary that you have to have a minimum of 48 teachers per semester, which means 48 tests and 48 days. You don't get to know anybody, you don't get to learn anything, but you got, what do they say, a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. It's a meaning America. You should know this school model reflects the public school model. The kid goes to school and has 20 topics. 20 topics in high school, 20. How many are you supposed to learn well? None of them. You just pass tests and you get grades, and I don't know who decided. The curriculum doesn't make any sense. The yeshiva system has the opposite problem. The boys learn one thing all day long. It actually is better if they would learn. But if they don't learn, they do nothing all day, you see. So it's, what is it, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There's got to be balance. The way it should be is that a topic that you enjoy, you should have many times. Because there's nothing more meaningful than developing an ability to learn. And you don't develop an ability to learn by learning Chumash with Kli Yakar once a week. You need to do it 4 times a week. You see what I'm saying? But then you can't have 49 teachers, you only have 44 teachers. You got to figure which 40 you're going to eliminate. So we're doing Maimed twice a week. I did it last year. I chose a very difficult Maimed. It was a good learn. I enjoyed it. The feedback that I got from the girls was that the first semester was better than the second semester, which is very interesting to me, because the Maimed we learned the first semester was far more difficult than the Maimed we learned the second semester. The issue was that it was a hemshah. The 2 Maimorim were contiguous, they were consecutive, they were a series. And the second semester, a lot of girls joined. The first semester had a smaller group. Smaller group means this size. Bigger group means even bigger than this. A lot of girls heard that there was something happening, they joined the class. The second semester didn't work as well. I'm sure I wasn't as good. I'm sure it's my fault also. But I taught 2 Maimorim of the Rebbe that are like a hand and a glove. One explains a very deep mystical idea, and the other one translates it into practical avodah. That's what we did last year. I enjoyed it very much. And this is the girls enjoyed the Eirei Seif more than the Torah and the Tefillah. I found that very interesting. The Maimorim we're learning this year, I'm not teaching same Maimed again because I'm a Chazer. I don't like to reteach things because I like to post things on my website, which is really the real reason I want to teach something new. And I'm no good at repeating. I'm no good. I'm just no good. Some people are very good saying the same speech over again. I get boring. Boring for myself and boring for the listeners. So I chose a different Maimed. It's a much easier topic. And it's a very sweet topic. It's a nice topic. It's not as mystical and philosophical, but it's a wonderful topic. And understand that this also is a series of 3 Maimorim. I am not entirely decided. Does anybody need? Does anybody not have? Please send it to Tachtel. Take a few, young lady. I am not decided yet whether I'm going to teach the second and third Maimed. I would like to. I want to see how this is going to go. It's an easier Maimed. It's long, but it's easy. It shouldn't take us a whole semester to learn. So I sort of have my options open. My dream is that I should learn with you all 3 Maimorim, these Maimorim. But it's personal for me a little bit, because these Maimorim came out in Memches in 1988. I got married in the very, very beginning of Tov Shanun. So I actually, during my Sheva Brachas, chazed these Maimorim. I memorized these Maimorim and I said them over. I said all 3 of these Maimorim. So it sort of has a very special place for me in my heart. And I sat down this morning and I learned through this Maimed. And on the one hand, I said, yeah, this is so familiar. On the other hand, I say, did I understand this 30 years ago? I didn't know what I was talking about. It's so interesting to me. I'm learning a Maimed. I probably learned this Maimed 10 times, at least. And I'm reading it, and I'm asking myself, did I ever understand it correctly? Because I don't remember the last time. I probably did, but it's just, every time you learn it, it's like beautiful, it's new. I'm going to tell you up front what the topic is. It's a fantastic topic. And again, just bear in mind that this is the first of 3. So this is going to evolve. That is going to go deeper and deeper and deeper, okay? The topic in a word is we need to put the air conditioner on or we're all going to melt. Am I accurate with that? Thank you. What do you think? It's especially uncomfortable. Am I wrong? Say hey. Anyway, the topic in a word, the topic of this class is shalom, is peace. That's the topic, write this down. The topic is shalom, is peace. It's a very beautiful topic. It's very involved. In Chassidus, there's a lot of discussion about peace. There's a lot of discussion about peace. And this Maimed, this series of Maimodim, which the Rebbe said in Tafshin Mem Aleph, 1980, Tafshin Mem Aleph, that means when we're going to be learning it's going to be a 45-year-old Maimed, was a series of Maimodim where the Rebbe developed the topic of peace profoundly, deeper, and even deeper. Two of the three Maimodim, here, come here. Two of the three Maimodim are actually the same Dibur Masla, Pada V'Shalom. The first one is Pada V'Shalom, the third one is Pada V'Shalom, the middle one is V'chol B'nayach L'midi Hashem. Oh, I forgot to say one more thing by way of introduction. Here's how these classes are going to work, and this is where we get into trouble. Every day at the end of class, I'm going to write questions of a review, which we're going to start the next class with. And I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. Sometimes the review could take 25 minutes of the next class, and the girls are saying, Rabbi, forget the questions, move on. What I do is I teach it to you, and the next class I give you questions, and we review them in class. I get carried away. It's my problem, and that's probably what happened the second semester last year. I forgot to mention that part. And then after we finish the review, then we go weiter. That's how it's going to work. The topic is Shalom. But like I said, two of the three Maimodim are Pada V'Shalom. So let me tell you a rule. Now this rule is not a cardinal rule, it's not an absolute rule, but it's a pretty precise rule. Okay? How many Maimodim Pada V'Shalom are there from all seven Abayim, from the Alter Rebbe to the Rebbe? How many Pada V'Shaloms are there? If you said 100, it would not be an exaggeration. There's probably 100, maybe more. The Rebbe alone probably has 25 Pada V'Shaloms. Because there's so many reasons to say them. Tes Kislev and Yutas Kislev. And if you need Yud Beis Tammuz. There's a lot of Pada V'Shaloms, a lot. Many. And B'klal, the Maimon and Pada V'Shalom go into two groupings. They go into two styles. And the way I understand it, and I'm saying the word I with emphasis, is the difference in the two Pada V'Shalom groupings are you learning what's called the Mittel Rebbe's Pada V'Shalom, or the Tzemach Tzedek's Pada V'Shalom? What's the difference between the Mittel Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek? Now, what I'm about to say, I shouldn't say, and it's wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm in a funny mood. The Mittel Rebbe speaks Chassidus. The Tzemach Tzedek speaks Chassidus with Nigla together. The Mittel Rebbe speaks Chassidus. The Tzemach Tzedek's Maimorim is a hybrid of Nigla and Chassidus together. So the Mittel Rebbe's Pada V'Shalom Nafshi Mikrav L'Kibrab B'Hayimadi goes on the pasuk. On the pasuk, Chassidus B'chlal goes on psukim. The Tzemach Tzedek's Pada V'Shalom goes on the Gemara. So the Mittel Rebbe's Pada V'Shalom is Pada V'Shalom Nafshi Mikrav L'Kibrab B'Hayimadi. David HaMelech is saying the Eibush to redeem my nefesh peaceably, mikrav, from a war. And krav doesn't stand as I mean a war. Krav means hand-to-hand combat, from close encountering with the enemy. And nevertheless, Pada V'Shalom Nafshi, Hashem redeem me peaceably, because many were with me. And of course the $1 million question is, how could you fight a war and kill a bunch of people and say you won peacefully? Pada V'Shalom mikrav is a contradiction in terms. You fight a war, you kill a bunch of people, we won peacefully? What do you won peacefully? But this is the sugya of shalom. Peace, even though it begins with a war, it's called Pada V'Shalom. It's a war that ends with peace. That's the big kasha. So the Mittel Rebbe's mind goes on the pasuk. It speaks about shalom. The Tzemach Tzedek goes on the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Kol ha'osek b'teira, u'b'gemilas chasadim, u'mispalel l'matzibor, if you learn Torah, and you give tzedakah, and you daven with a minyan, Ma'alani alav, the Eibishter says, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter says, Ma'alani alav, I consider it, Ki'ilu as if, Pada'ani, you redeemed, Liu, Labanim, me and my children, Bein Umas Elam from the nations of the world. So the Tzemach Tzedek goes on the Gemara. Now the Gemara also is peace. Why? Because peace always goes in three. When you have one, you can't have peace because you have no conflict. When you have two, you can't have peace because you have conflict. When you have three, you have two conflicted components and then a unifier. And that's Torah Avoid and Gemilas Chasadim. You see? So in the middle of Maimorim, Torah is, Shalom is one thing. In the Tzemach Tzedek's Maimorim, Shalom is more sophisticated, more involved. So if you let's say for the sake of argument, there's 100 Maimorim Pada B'Shalom. So a bunch of them, I can't tell you percentages, are on the Tzemach Tzedek. The Gemara is not quoted. And if the Gemara is not quoted, you should translate the word Shalom. Pada B'Shalom Nafshe B'Krav K'Brat Ma'yim Mad. And other Maimorim bring the Gemara, which again, the way I understand it, it's the Tzemach Tzedek's version. You bring the Gemara, the piece is more complicated, because you mentioned Torah is, Avoida is Gevura, Gemilas Chasadim is Chesed, and Torah is Tiferes, right? The three poles. Torah, Avoida, Gemilas Chasadim is Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. You're creating peace in a complex situation. And that's how the Maimorim go. But derech klal, as a rule. There are exceptions, but that's how it is. This, and the next two after, which I'm hoping to teach you this year, if things work out as I plan them, is the Mittel Rebbe. It's not the Tzemach Tzedek. They're edited Maimorim for the Rebbe, 3 edited Maimorim for the Rebbe in a sequence in a hemshech that goes on the Mittel Rebbe's Pada B'Shalom. The Mittel Pada B'Shalom is a very long Maimir. It's printed in a sefer called Shari Tshuva. It's very long. It's maybe 10 daf. It's like 20 pages. Massive Maimir. And the Rebbe is reviewing the Mittel Rebbe's Maimir. He doesn't speak at all, but he overviews the ideas, and he focuses on the concept of peace. Okay? So, let's talk. What is peace? And of course in English, the pun of peace, P-I-E-C-E, or P-E-I-C-E, right? It's supposed to be P-E-I, but it's P-I-E, right? How do you spell it?
P-I-E.
P?
P-A-C-E.
No, peace.
Peace is in like a pot. P-I-E.
P-I-E. So when I went to school, they told me I before E except after C. I guess that's right. P-I-E-C-E, right? So there's peace, P-I-E-C-E, and then there's P-E-A-C-E, right? P-E-A-C-E. They're opposites. Why? Because the first piece is broken off. The second piece is bringing the broken pieces together. It's one of those interesting puns in English that fits very good with the Chassidus. You can't have peace unless you have pieces. Right? If you're the only person in the universe, there's no problems. I can be boring, but there's no problem. Nobody to fight with. You can't have peace unless you can have conflict. So peace, meaning broke apart, and peace, meaning bringing different parts together, it's one of those puns. It's a very Chassidish pun. It just works. It works up Chassidus, and it works very, very precisely. You can't have shalom if there's no machlokes. Now, machlokes doesn't have to mean a fight. Machlokes can simply mean a division. Machlokes means to divide it up into pieces, right? When the Kohanim worked in the Beis Hamikdash, they divided up the food amongst themselves. The Hebrew word that is used to denote the distribution of the kachim for the Kohanim every day in the Beis Hamikdash is machlokes. Machlokes means they fought about it, they just divided it up. So you can't have shalom, if you don't have more than one, you can't have peace. Peace can only exist when you have differences, when you have conflict, when you have separations. Now, let's talk about peace in the most elementary level. In other words, on mamish, on the most basic level, which is before Yiddishkeit. It's even maybe before common sense, right? A friend of mine once told me, I asked my friend, what's going on in this city? How are people getting along? He said, yeah, it's okay. There's underneath the surface, people don't get along, so but outside everyone behaves. And then he tells me in Yiddish, so you're always better off with a false peace than a true war. It's fake. What's peace? What's peace? Right? What's the United Nations screaming peace? Israel has to stop fighting with Hezbollah, has to stop fighting with Gaza. And what does the world care about?
Looks.
That they should stop killing. Who's right and who's wrong doesn't matter. Who wins and who loses doesn't matter. They should stop killing. Now what's the answer? The answer is if Israel stops killing today, they're going to have to kill tomorrow more than today. And if Israel had done what they're doing now, 30 years ago, it would have been quicker and easier and been less loss of life. So the world doesn't care about the truth, cares about, like you said, the looks, how it looks. Two people are fighting, you walk into school and two kids are beating each other in the playground, you want to separate them. Now one of those kids is a sweet little boy, the other kid is an obnoxious Joshua, but two kids are fighting. And it often happens that you don't mean to, but the victim becomes victimized again because you're trying to help him. It's called a falsha shalom. Just stop fighting, right? The code word is, for those who don't speak English, cease fire. Just stop shooting. Now, cease fire really means build up more bombs, get more soldiers, so you can kill each other better tomorrow. But now we're not fighting, so we're happy. You say, oh, peace. It's all a falsha shalom. It's a false peace. Now, false peace can hold. Sometimes false peace can hold for a very, very long time. Okay? Now I'm going to teach you geopolitics. Okay? I am a holoteidenik, so maybe I'm an expert in all limudei chol. So I'm going to teach you all went to high school. I'm going to teach you something that you probably learned but you never understood. I'm going to explain it to you. What is the greatest deterrent to war? Now, there's deterrent. What is the greatest thing that prevents two countries from fighting with each other? So the Rebbe says always correctly, and I'm not chas v'shalom disagreeing with the Rebbe, if you want not to have to fight a war, be strong, right? But that's the truth. Now, what's the political truth? The political truth is two nations cannot fight if they have too much to lose. Which is why, think about this in common sense, rich countries are far less likely to go to war than poor countries are. Rich people are far less likely to fight with their neighbors than poor people are. Because they have too much to lose. That's the way it is. It doesn't make them better, it's just how it is. If you live in a country with a lot of wealth, and if you're a rich person in that country, and the example for this, and I don't want to have conversations, but there was a guy, we call him an anti-Semite, he probably wasn't, it was Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy did not want to fight. Why? Because he had what to lose. Shmendek had nothing to lose, you understand? If you have a lot of money, two countries with a lot of wealth are far less likely that the false peace is going to hold stronger if there's money involved. Think about the Middle East, right? Who wants to make peace with Israel? Saudi Arabia. Because they have a lot to lose. Who's happy to fight with Israel? Yemen. Why? They got nothing to lose. They're a poor country. No, it really works that way. So false peace could work, but it's not going to work because people are nice guys, you understand? False peace could work if you bribe both sides. If I have a reason not to fight. Israel does not want to fight. Why? Israel's a rich country. Israel's a peaceful country. Israel doesn't have a choice. They're fighting for their life. They're fighting against people who want to die. It's very hard. They don't care. If this is going to sound nuts, if the Arabs in Gaza and the Arabs in Lebanon had a lot of money, they would be so anxious to become members of Iran's terrorism because there's too much to lose. So a false peace could hold. It could. But the combatants have to have an ulterior motivation. You understand? So countries with wealth are far less likely to go to war than countries without wealth. People with wealth. If you have too much to lose, it's not worth the fight. People don't fight because they want to be right. People fight because they want to gain something. And if you're going to fight, and even if you win, you lost, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So false peace works. And false peace is a good idea. Don't misunderstand. Cease fire. In a scenario, this is geopolitics, this has nothing to do with my man. I'm sure get fired for this because I'm teaching you lyhadus chol. Cease fire. Two countries saying the war is not over, but we're stopping the shooters. But we're not making a peace treaty, we're making a ceasefire. Could hold for years, for centuries, for decades. If the two combatants are better served by not fighting than fighting, it could work. The problem with Israel is that when Israel ceases fires, that's a message to the Arabs that they can fight again. We're dealing with an enemy that has nothing to lose. And an enemy that you have to defeat. And the classic example of that is the Germans in World War I. For those who know the history, the Germans in World War I were not defeated. There was a ceasefire. And that's what it was World War II. What had to happen in World War I was what happened in World War II. Unconditional surrender. The Germans had to be defeated, and the Germans had to know they lost. That FDR, the President of the United States, said to Eisenhower, in the end of the Second World War, you make sure they lose bad. Can't just win the Germans, you have to defeat the Germans. Unconditional surrender, because the Germans had to know they lost. Because unless the Germans knew that they lost, they're going to see the ceasefire as an opportunity to fight again. That's what Israel is dealing with. Ceasefire can hold if the two sides have a lot to lose. There's room for it. But it's bluff. It's not peace. It's just not war. And by the way, not war is pretty good. In the real world, we don't believe in people fighting wars. The worst single invention of mankind is war. Organized killing sanctioned by governments and law. It's unbelievable. War is so sick, it's not to be imagined. Unfortunately, it's a part of life, part of our history. But a false shalom, if it holds, is good. If it doesn't hold, then nobody gains. What's true peace? What's true peace? Huh? And again, I'm still speaking geopolitics, but we're getting closer to the Maimon now. If the two sides fight a war, and when the war is over, they push it, make friends. Now, how could that happen? Okay, it's a great example, but that was it was not pushed at all. After the Civil War for 50, the Civil War, I have a whole opinion about it. The South is still breaking about the Civil War, but okay, it's all the same.
A better example is probably the Americans and the British after the war after the war.
Okay, it's a good example, but it's a very good example. I think the best example is the United States and Japan after the Second World War. The hatred that we had to them and they had to us was unimaginable. And we were culturally so different. After the Second World War, America and Japan became friends. There's a lot of reasons why. And again, if you know the history, there's a guy named MacArthur, Douglas MacArthur, who he was our representative. He was like the king of Japan. He was very, very smart about how he dealt with the Japanese. He didn't punish them. He didn't take revenge. He respected them. He allowed the Japanese to be people again, and we gained from it. Why? Because America is about only one thing. What does America care about? Money. A rich Japan means we can do business and make more money. It's very simple. But there's a lot of reasons why. After the Second World War, America and Japan made peace. I'll tell you what I think is a very significant part of the reason. The atomic bomb. The atomic bomb told the Japanese that they're idiots for starting up with America. They're total fools. But they're total fools and idiots of America that they cursed the day that they started the war, and they swore to themselves that as long as they live, they'll never fight with America again. In other words, peace can happen when one side wins decisively and the other side loses decisively, and there's no ceasefire. A ceasefire means that we're taking a break in the shooting, so I can lick my wounds and you can lick my wounds. I can rearm and you can we'll fight again. You know the history of Europe? In Europe, they fought a war for 100 years. Can you please tell me how you fight a war for 100 years? In Europe, they fought a war for 30 years, for 7 years. The 100-year war, the 30s, the famous wars. You guys learned this in high school. How do you fight for 100 years? You don't fight for 100 years. You have ceasefire, you fight again. The war never finishes. Because nobody wins, because nobody loses. The Second World War was different than the First World War because there were clear winners and clear losers. It was over, you ended it, finished. That's a form of peace. When we show the Japanese that we have a weapon that makes the war so unfair that they can't fight with us. If you're using guns and I'm using guns, we can keep fighting. But if you are using guns and I'm using atomic bombs, the enemy doesn't want to be your enemy anymore. That is peace. It's not a compromise. Let's sign a piece of paper. We're going to stop shooting at each other for the next 15 minutes, and after that, if we decide to shoot, we're allowed to shoot. Peace happens in many ways, and one of the ways is if one side really wins, the other side really loses, then they can come together. It's not a compromise.
It's not friends, though.
Yeah, but they become friends if you have no reason to fight with your opponent. I mean, what America did. B'chlal. I'm an American. I don't know if you're an American or not. America's a pretty kooky place. Not pretty kooky. It's a very kooky place. But America is one of the kindest nations in the history of mankind. The way America fought its wars is historic. What we did to the Germans and to the Japanese is unbelievable. Only America has that in themselves to fight with an enemy, finish the war, and then be friends with them. It's an American thing. Trust me. Why should you trust me? Yeah, trust me. Trust me. Wait.
It sounds like Hashem held the mountain over the Eden and said, yeah, they're friends, but because there's way more to lose if they don't.
Fine. You just made this into religion, and you made me nervous, and you confused me. I'm talking politics. America won a war decisively and made friends with their enemies and created a peaceful world. America gets doesn't get nearly enough credit for the whole peace in the world. It's not Europe. It's America. Because Americans are good people. That's my opinion. I still hold it. They're still crazy and stupid, but good. Europeans are smart. Europeans are normal, but they're vengeful. They don't forgive. They don't forget. Americans are forgiving. Anyway, this is not Negiyah. Keep the kaf aleim haki gisad for a little while. Do me a favor. Okay, so peace happens. Peace happens when the two sides not just stop fighting, they stop wishing to fight. That's peace. Chassidus, b'chlal Torah, but Chassidus especially, doesn't even deal with the first kind of peace. The first kind of peace is what we call ceasefire, where two nations are beating each other up, and they said to stop fighting, and maybe the ceasefire holds, maybe not. But if the ceasefire holds, the only reason it's holding is not because they're friends, it's because they have too much to lose. Like I explained to you before, if you're a rich country, you would rather not fight because you have more to lose. Real peace is when the two enemies become friends. It's over. Over forever. And Chassidus begins its discussion on Shalom here. Pada b'Shalom means that the war is over, not in the kind of way that tomorrow you're going to fight again. That's not Pada b'Shalom. You fight a war, the war is finished, and it's not happening, it's over, finished, ended. And on a very practical level, that explains Mikrav. You fought a war, the war finished, and even though you fought a war that was so vicious and so bitter and so personal, when it's over, it's Pada b'Shalom. Pada b'Shalom means this war will never be fought again because the combatants are not enemies anymore, whatever the reason is. So I just described to you two ideas. Maybe it wasn't clear, but I described to you two ideas. Stopping a war in a way of compromise, which is also called peace, and it's also a good thing, but it's not real peace, it's phony peace. And stopping a war in the kind of way where the war is mamish over. In the minds and the hearts of the combatants, they're not fighting. That's real Pada b'Shalom. Now the way the Maimorim talk about Pada b'Shalom is, they go higher and higher and higher and higher in this idea of Shalom. Okay? So, as we learn this Maimon, we're never going back to ceasefires, okay? We're ceasing with the ceasefires, you understand? I said this to you preliminarily. I gave you the introduction of false peace, but it's not coming up again. The Maimon is Torah. Torah speaks in ideal terms, in real terms, in absolute terms. Torah speaks about only peace that's real peace. Real peace means where the fight is not suspended for a time, the fight is finished forever. That's tight Pada b'Shalom. In this Maimed, there's going to be levels in Pada b'Shalom. In other words, how much peace is there? How unified have the two combatants become? That becomes the issue of this Maimed. If the baseline, if the beginning of it is two sides are fighting, and the fight is, not they're interrupting the fighting, but the fight is over, that's Pada b'Shalom. In this itself, there's going to be madregas upon madregas upon madregas upon madregas. Does anybody wish to ask any questions or make any comments? And I mean it. Go ahead, talk loud.
Does that mean compromise in life isn't God and the way to go?
Say it again, please.
Does that mean compromise in life is not God and not the way to go, and someone should aim for like true peace without compromise?
I think compromise is a very good way to go. But compromise cannot be the kind of compromise which is simply delaying the inevitable. If you make compromise, and the cost of that compromise is that tomorrow you're going to make a second compromise, and the third compromise, until you're going to be so sick of compromising that you're going to hit the guy with both hands and both feet, that's compromise you shouldn't make. Compromise is very important. I said a false peace is good if it could work. Of course you want real peace. But if compromise works, it works. And Yisrael, using it as an example, they don't have a choice. Because their enemies are not going to let them. They're just not going to let them. Israel has to defeat them like we defeated the Japanese. They have to curse the day they started up with us. Not just Hezbollah, not just Gaza, Iran. Because it's not going to end till that happens. Everybody understands it, but nobody likes it. Because it's not nice when people fight. But letting this thing fester like a cancer has gotten us to this point. But compromise is a very good idea.
So compromise could lead to true peace?
Compromise, that's tricky. But I think over time, compromise can lead to true peace. In other words, if people make a ceasefire in a war, and they have too much to lose, so they don't fight again, the chances of the combatants making peace is not great. But the children can. In other words, if you hate somebody deeply, you can't sit at the same table with him. But your kid doesn't hate him so deeply. He didn't get killed by him. You see what I'm saying? So it could lead to drill. It just takes, practically speaking, it takes time. Okay? Any other questions or comments? We're good? We're good, or what's this rabbi talking about? I know class I'm taking. Geopolitics or Chassidus?
If someone wins me, if I fight with someone and like he wins, like whatever, he wins the fight, I'm not gonna love him.
You're not gonna love him.
I'm gonna hate him even more.
You're gonna hate him. But what if after you finish fighting and you put down your weapons, he treats you with respect? So you're gonna say, why are you being treated with respect? Why are you being nice to me? You're tricking me? He says, no, if you're not gonna fight, I'll be your friend. That changes it, right? Goyim understood that. Goyim, you're not an American, right? You got an accent, right? You're not an American. After the Second World War, there were people who wanted to make Germany into a farm. They wanted to make Japan, there wouldn't be a motor car. America made those countries strong. And that's how we became friends with our enemies. You understand what I'm saying? It takes time. But you have to mean it. You can't bluff. And of course, Americans, in all these wonderful good things that they do, one thing is for sure true, they made a lot of money. Okay. Now girls, now listen to me carefully.
But wait,
Go ahead, talk loud and
Key is
clear.
though you have to actually be strong.
Of course. The weaker one can't make peace.
Right. So how do you always know if you're on the stronger side? Like
Have an atomic bomb, that's it. Now, girls, I want to say what I just said in more Hasidic language, okay? I spoke to you very down to earth. This false peace, we're finished with false peace. We're done with it. We're not going back to it, okay? And this true peace. True peace means the war is over. Neither side wants to fight again. Now, I'm going to give you a philosophical idea, okay? This you should write down. The philosophical idea is real peace cannot happen unless there is a secret weapon. A secret weapon. Real peace cannot happen until one of the two sides has a weapon that makes the war completely imbalanced. If you have 100,000 soldiers and your enemy has 80,000 soldiers, and you have tanks that weigh 22 tons, and they have tanks which is World War II numbers, and they have tanks that weigh 19 tons. So one side is stronger than the other, but you can still fight. But if one side is an atomic bomb, and the other is using conventional weapons, that's not a fight anymore. For there to be real peace, there has to be a real imbalance. One side has to be not a little stronger than the other, has to be so much stronger than the other that there cannot be a war. It's impossible, you can't fight. So how do you say that in Chassidus? In Lashon from Torah? In Chassidus you would say you can't have shalom without oir from above. For there to be peace in a place of machlokes, right? How did I start today's class? You can't have shalom without machlokes. For to be shalom without machlokes, you always need an oir, a higher light. A higher light is Hebrew for an atomic bomb. It makes it so imbalanced that it's not a war. And that's the process that I want you to sort of digest in this class, okay? Emes Shalom, true peace, is when the war is finished and the two sides can, at least in theory, become friends. The key to that is that one side has a weapon that the other side cannot match, and in Lashon Chassidus, a higher light, something which comes from another place that enters into the scenario that breaks the machlokes. It breaks the war. And that's the key concept in Shalom. The key concept in Shalom is a higher light. In plain English, it's an atomic bomb. It's a super weapon. In Lashon HaKodesh, in Lashon Torah, it's a power that you have that comes from higher that makes the war a non-war. And I'm going to give you a funny example. It is a funny example. The example is David HaMelech. David HaMelech, unfortunately, spent his entire life fighting wars. At the very, very end of his life, he fought the most miserable and vicious and personal battle of his life. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? With his own son, with Avshalom. Now, some people say that Pada b'Shalom nafshi b'krovdi ki b'rab ha'imadi goes on that war. Why? Because David had a secret weapon. David had an atomic bomb. What was David's secret weapon? Anybody know what his secret weapon was? Tilim. He was 67 years old. He was an old man. He had no koyach. He didn't go fight. His soldiers fought. David HaMelech sat in his room and said Tilim, and he cried. And he got into the heads of Avshalom's army. David HaMelech's Tilim got into the opponent. The Gemara says, you'll see it in this Maimah later on, that Anshe Avshalom is Spalal L'Shleim Shalom. David and Avshalom are fighting a vicious war. Civil wars are the worst kind of wars. They're very personal. Very personal. There's a father and a son involved in it, and Avshalom would have killed David in a heartbeat if he caught him. He would have killed his own father. He was a Rasha. Avshalom was. And Avshalom's soldiers are going out to fight and all praying that nothing happens to David HaMelech. How do you fight like that? How do you fight with an enemy and you pray that the king of the enemy doesn't die? You can't fight. In other words, David got into their head in the kind of way that he took the sword out of their hand. Psychologically, they were not in a position to fight. That's the atomic bomb. That's the Pada b'Shalom of that story. Two sides are fighting. If they're equally matched, there will never be Pada b'Shalom. There can only be ceasefire. They can fight again. Sometimes the ceasefire will hold, which is compromise, and compromise is a good thing if it's going to work. Pada b'Shalom means one of the two sides has a secret weapon. The secret weapon makes the war a non-war. The best example I have for this is an atomic bomb. Everybody can understand it. And in Torah, there are a series of examples of Pada b'Shalom. And the first one is David sat in his room, wherever he was hiding out, outside of Yerushalayim, and he goes asking, he goes up Tilim and Ted. He was saying Tilim. And his enemy soldiers were worried about David HaMelech. He can't fight like that. And that's what brought about the Pada b'Shalom. Okay? So now, girls, we have two ideas. Two ideas. I know I'm going slow, but there's a lot more than you think. You think I'm just talking, I'm actually teaching. Because if you're not paying attention, you're going to come back to the next class and you're not going to understand what you missed. Because it sounds like a fabrengen. I'm not fabrengen, I'm teaching. There's two things you have to know about Shalom. Shalom means it's decisive. Decisive. It's over. And Shalom cannot happen without a secret weapon. It can't. Shalom means one side has a light that renders the battlefield a non-battlefield. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not balanced in any way, shape, or form. Those are the rules of Shalom. So we have a series of Maimorim. They're going to talk us through the process of Shalom, okay? And these are the guidelines. Number one, Shalom does not mean ceasefire. It doesn't mean stopping to fight. Shalom means that the two sides literally become friends. And the key requirement for that is that one of the two sides has a weapon that makes the battlefield a non-battlefield, and in Torah terms, it's a higher oil, it's a higher light, which renders the opponent not able to fight with you. Just 1 second. Go ahead.
We technically do have a weapon that's stronger. We have someone like we have Hashem on our side. We have miracles.
I know, but against that, we have this Jewish cowardice. This Jewish fear of blood. We don't want to kill. We don't want to kill.
When it comes to our enemy.
Yeah, we don't want to kill. Jews are really not good killers. I mean, they're very good at it when they have to do it. But they don't like to kill. Jews are compassionate people. When you fight a war, There's an Issa De'eraisa to have mercy. It's an Issa. But in order for a Yid to kill people, it's very hard.
Not when it's people that have killed your people.
You
for
so
many
quickly
years.
forget. Go to Israel, see the demonstrations. Yidden are good people. They're better than Americans. And they're crazier.
I highly doubt that
You highly doubt? Israel's
that
torn apart.
if anyone would see a Hamas member on the streets,
Yeah.
they would kill him.
You're so wrong. You're so wrong. The old cliche question. If you could get the Hitler baby, would you kill him?
Yes.
You wouldn't. I give you my word. Because you're Jewish.
If you know what he's gonna do.
Yeah, you know everything. Such a beautiful bubbler. Other people will kill any baby because they don't care. It's Yidden, this is the whole thing. When they ever screamed about it, you care about peace? You care about love? Finish the war. You'll save lives. But you have to use your head, not your heart. We forget so quick. So many people say, it's a Rahmanas in the Palestinians. It is a Rahmanas in the Palestinians. But if we stop now, we're going to have to do it in 20 years again. And it's going to be much worse. And we keep making the same mistake. Israel continuously makes these. There's a famous video, and I don't have time to talk to you about this, where the Rebbe wanted to take the Messiah after Yom Kippur with Damascus. And they gave the Rebbe a bunch of reasons why they couldn't. And the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Klein, was talking to this Machon from the Israeli government, and he hears the Rebbe saying in the background, in English, he's so upset. Big mistake! Big mistake! This mistake we paid for a year ago. 50 years ago, Israel didn't finish. You have to finish. You have to shame the Arabs. And you'll never have to fight with them again. You'll be their friend. But you're saying, let's be nice. Everything must be nice. You're setting up the next war. It's so hard for Yidden to do that. Because we're kind, compassionate people. But it's wrong. It's wrong. More Yidden die and more Goyim die. But trust me, it's a test. I'm so surprised how long Bibi has been fighting. You know what the pressure that he has to stop this fight? There's so many Israelis say, forget about it, we can't kill anymore. It's not about 1,300 hostages. It's not. It's not revenge. It's about peace. This has to stop. The day this war is over, Hamas is going to announce that it won. They're going to say they won. If there's one Hamas guy alive, he's going to hold up a flag and say, look, we defeated the Israelis. And he's going to believe it. That's not allowed to happen. They have to say, I'm sorry I started up with you, put the tail between the legs. And Israel has to make them do it. It's very hard for Jews to do that. It's very hard for Jews to do that. But this is how this ends. And everybody gains. The Arabs gain. And this is what I'm saying. You have to be strong. You have to be tough. Imagine a Rebbe talking about being tough and strong, killing people. Doesn't sound right? But it is. Because that's how it finishes. Anyway, no more geopolitics. Yeah, go ahead.
With a common bond, it's not even about being stronger. It's that no one wants to mess with another country if they have the common
That's the
bond.
same thing, my friend. It's exactly the same thing. It's just different words. That's the point. Go ahead.
Does this also apply like in a holiday, right? Like in a regular, like to I guess?
Yes?
Because it doesn't seem like the weaker person could ever, they don't have the responsibility to make peace.
Well, responsibility is one word.
They don't have the
Opportunity is. You're right. You see, when people fight, people get stuck. In other words, you even forget why you're fighting. You're just fighting. And you can't give in. Every situation is different, but it's true. The ability to end a fight in a way that the two become friends lies with the one who's stronger. It's true.
It's not like fair.
It's my friend. You should be in my house for 15 minutes. Fairness ends in nursery, not in kindergarten. If you're lucky. Fairness is the biggest lie. We live in an America that's screaming the whole day, you have to make things fair, and they're destroying our country. There's no such thing as fairness. Fairness doesn't exist. There's right and wrong.
If you're the weaker person and you want to make peace, can you?
Nope. You can try. You can't.
Well, maybe if you want, if you can become stronger.
If you show weakness, it's going to get worse. It's very tricky. You can walk away. You can make compromises. You're right. What you said is true. That to make peace in the way that the two enemies become friends is on the superior partner. It's true. Go ahead.
I
I was gonna say like Hillel and Shammai were really good friends, but it wasn't that one was right and the other was wrong ever.
Well, Hillel and Shammai were not fighting with guns and knives. They were learning Torah.
We're just talking about like Malchus is like fight like.
Of course. It was like fight, yeah. Like cinema misnagdim, like fight, yes. Not like Hillel and Shammai. Okay, now, girls, I got to teach you something, right? So I told you two things today. I guess I had three things. Number one, there is a place for compromised peace, which is not real peace. Torah does not discuss it. Number two, real peace is where the two enemies become friends. And number three, for that to happen, one of the sides has to have a weapon that renders the war a non-war, and then there can be peace. Okay? But I also told you, you can't have peace unless there's machlekes. You can only have peace when there's division. In a universe where there is only God, there can't be machlekes. So let's think about this in religious terms. You have a Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. You have Kedusha and Klipa. That's the ultimate war. What's Pada B'Shalom Nafshi Mekrov Liki B'Rabim Ha'yamadi between Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, between Kedusha and Klipa and all of that? So I guess on some level the answer is when you become a tzaddik. Right? How do you become a tzaddik? You have a higher light. Until you become a tzaddik, every ceasefire is simply waiting for the next fight. So in us, there is a scenario of machlekes, which is never going to end in shalom. That's a beinani. And in us, there's a scenario we can have other shalom, which is the madrega of tzaddik. And the same is true in our relationship with the world. The world around us is full of klipa. Some klipas we can correct, some klipas we have to stay away from. In our struggle in this world, what is pada mitech machlekes and what is pada mitech shalom? If we're fighting with Elam Hazeh, we're struggling. The world tests us, and we're affected adversely by the tests of the world. As long as we are still tested by the world, even if today I won, that's not pada b'shalom. That's machlekes. Pada b'shalom means that I make peace with the world. The world becomes my friend. And this, girls, is the reason there's levels in Shalom. There's madregas in Shalom. How powerful is your atomic bomb? How transcendent is your light from above, which is the basis for the peace? How comprehensive is the consequential peace? In other words, how one are the two sides becoming? And there's levels in it. You follow? Okay, so I'll see you.